Imagine a busy market in Africa where vendors from different countries gather to sell their goods. Each vendor uses a different currency, reflecting the continent's diversity. But is there a better way to promote trade and unity in Africa using an African single currency? Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. In another part of the world, powerful countries like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, known as the Brics nation, are challenging established global currencies like the US dollar. They want to create a new global currency that could challenge the way international trade and finance work. These two stories of African single currency and Brics Global Reserve Currency might seem different, but they share a common goal of economic empowerment and independence. So in this video, we'll explore these two currencies. We'll uncover the promises, challenges, and impacts of each currency to find out which path could lead to a brighter future for the continent of Africa. So welcome to Africa Single Currency versus Brics Global Reserve Currency, which is better. Let's find out.
What do we want? Freedom! When do we want it? Now!
Say hello, Africa!
How you doing, Africa?
Say hello, Africa!
How you doing?
Africa's attempt at achieving economic prosperity through a single currency goes way back to the days of the OAU, which stands for Organization of African Unity. Their mission was to basically bring African nations together and resolve common issues through collective action. The OAU was less successful in achieving its mission, and due to a lack of meaningful results, African leaders became increasingly skeptical about the organization's effectiveness. So in 1994, African leaders recognized the need for change, and plans were finally made to reform the OAU. And guess what? Nothing tangible came out. But finally in 1999, Muammar Gaddafi, the leader of Libya, presented his vision of a United States of Africa. He imagined a continent that stood as one, a single president, a united defense force, and a single currency. In order to make this plan work, Gaddafi called for the scrapping of the OAU and the creation of the African Union, with its core mission being an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, driven by its own citizens, representing a dynamic force in the global arena. Pursuing the idea of a single currency in Africa, in 2002, the African Union went on to launch the African Monetary Cooperation Program, AMCP, as a framework to achieving the goal of a single currency. The AMCP aims to coordinate the monetary policies among African countries, unifying exchange rate regimes, and strengthening the central bank cooperation in the continent, as they had plans to launch the Central Bank of Africa. So in 2004, the African Union adopted a roadmap for integrating the African monetary system, and it included a detailed plan for the creation of a single currency. However, due to challenges such as economic disparities among African countries, political instability, harmonization of policies, and lack of political will by African leaders, the timeline for the creation of a single currency was revised multiple times, with no exact date currently known for its creation. Now, though this might seem like a bad news, there is some good news. In 2018, African leaders brokered the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, AfCFTA, the world's biggest trade agreement since the World Trade Organization, WTO. This particular agreement of the AfCFTA, I'm trying to get that term correctly, involves the creation of a single market for African countries to trade goods and services seamlessly and deepen economic integration on the continent, and is projected to have the potential to increase Africa's income by over $450 billion and lift over 30 million people out of extreme poverty by 2035. Well, you see, the AfCFTA is part of African Union's plan to make Africa resemble the European Union one day, and a single currency stands at the core of this project. If you take a look at the EU's euro, which was created about 20 years ago, it is now currently being used by more than 340 million people across 19 European countries, with 27.6 billion euro banknotes in circulation. It is also currently the second most widely used currency in the world, just behind the US dollar. In fact, the EU has attributed the prosperity some European countries have experienced in recent years to the euro, which then leads us to the potential economic benefit of a single currency in Africa. To properly explain the economic benefits of a single currency in Africa, I want you to imagine you are a businessman in Lagos, Nigeria. You want to export your goods to Ghana, but you are worried about the exchange rate. The Nigerian naira is volatile, and you don't know how much your goods will be worth in the Ghanaian cedis when you arrive. This uncertainty makes it difficult for you to plan your business and can lead to losses. Now, imagine that there is a single currency in Africa. You can export your goods to Ghana without having to worry about the exchange rate. This will make it easier for you to plan your business and will help you to avoid losses. Now, this is just one benefit of the African single currency. You see, the adoption of a single currency in Africa will ensure stability and control over monetary policies. Without corruption, African central banks will effectively manage inflation rates, fostering price stability and economic bounce back. Citizens and businesses will benefit from a predictable and steady economic environment, enabling them to plan for the future with confidence. With a single currency, cross-border travel within Africa will become a seamless experience. Imagine being able to travel from Nigeria to Egypt without having to start changing from one currency to another. This will encourage tourism and cultural exchange, allowing people to immerse themselves in the history of the African culture, which is actually rich. The introduction of a single currency will enhance Africa's global appeal to investors. Foreign direct investments will flow into Africa, fueling innovation, infrastructure development, and job creation, elevating the continent's economic prowess. The single currency will foster a sense of unity and collaboration among African nations. It will encourage countries to work together, harmonize policies, and pool resources for mutual progress. This unity will lead to transformative collaborations in areas such as infrastructure, energy, and cross-border initiatives, propelling Africa towards rapid development. While the benefit of a single currency in Africa sounds very interesting, for us to answer the question of African single currency versus Brics currency, which is better, we need to as well explore the motive behind the Brics currency and its economic impact in the continent of Africa. For those who may not know, Brics is an economic alliance that was formed in 2010. It comprises of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and it is growing to be one of the world's superpowers. In fact, as the Brics nations gain more influence and economic superpower, there have been discussions within themselves on the creation of a global reserve currency that have the potential to reshape the way international financial systems operate. The Brics countries believe that a new currency would provide more stability and reduce the dependence of the world economy on the US dollar. As most times, the United States of America and its leaders use the dollar and its financial strength to sanction countries that do not do their biddings. Another reason for a Brics issued currency is to increase economic ties between the member states. You see, the Brics countries have a combined GDP of over $20 trillion, accounting for over 30% of the world's GDP, and projections show that this could hit 50% by 2030. Despite these projections and milestones by the Brics, there is still limited intra-Brics trade, so new Brics currency could promote trade amongst the member states and reduce reliance on the US dollar. This would enable the Brics countries to develop stronger economic ties, benefiting all members. Well, that is not our focus for now. Our core focus is how does this Brics Global Reserve Currency benefit Africa? Well, if the Brics currency is created today, it could help to increase trade investments in Africa. This is because Brics countries are major trading partners with Africa. China, for example, which is a member of the Brics, is now Africa's biggest trading partner, with China-African trade topping $200 billion per year. In fact, over 10,000 Chinese firms are currently operating throughout the African continent, and the value of these Chinese businesses there since 2005 amounts to more than $2 trillion, with over $300 billion in current investments. So the Brics currency has the potential to make these numbers to increase. A Brics currency could provide stability to the African financial system by diversifying their foreign exchange reserves with the Brics currency. African nations could mitigate the risks associated with relying solely on traditional reserve currencies like the US dollar. This stability would lead to better management of inflation, ensuring purchasing powers of African currencies is preserved. As a result, the cost of living would become more predictable. enabling African families to plan for the future with confidence. When you take a look at the benefit of a BRICS currency and the benefit of an African single currency, you understand that both have the potential to improve the African economy, and it all boils down to the economic objective each African country has set. South Africa, for example, might not be necessarily interested in pursuing a single African currency, but instead a BRICS currency because of the role they play in the organization. After all, the continent of Africa has been struggling for the last 31 years to materialize creating a single currency. Even the different continent blocks like the ECOWAS and the EAF are yet to make progress in creating a single currency. Well, that's a story for another day. Leave a comment telling me what you think about the creation of a single currency in Africa, and also what you think about the impact of a BRICS currency in Africa. Which of them would you choose today? Let me know. Leave a comment, guys. If you found this video insightful, you'll definitely find my other video where I break down in details the economic impact of BRICS currency in Africa. With that being said, see you on the next one. Deal.